The movie opens with a thunderous explosion ripping through a massive rock wall. Under the scorching sun, prisoners in a brutal quarry swing heavy sledgehammers, shattering stone after stone. Among them is a quiet, battle-scarred man named John Rambo. A guard suddenly shouts for him to stop working. Someone has come to see him. Rambo slowly lowers his hammer, his body hardened by years of punishment. Without a word, he follows the guard toward the prison fence. Waiting there is a man he hasn't seen in a long time, Colonel Samuel Troutman. Years ago, during the Vietnam War, Rambo served directly under Troutman's command. After the war, Rambo surrendered to the authorities and narrowly avoided the death penalty. Since then, Troutman has been searching for a way to get his soldier out of prison. Now, that opportunity has finally arrived. Troutman asks the guards to give them a moment alone. Then he explains the situation. The U.S. government believes that American POWs may still be alive in Vietnam, held in the same brutal prison camp that Rambo once escaped from. No one knows that jungle terrain better than him. If anyone can confirm the truth, it's Rambo. The mission is simple on paper. Infiltrate the area, locate the camp, and bring back photographic evidence proving whether prisoners are still alive. Rambo barely reacts. He no longer believes in the ideals that once drove him. The idea of returning to Vietnam, the place where he was tortured and nearly killed, doesn't excite him at all. But staying in prison for 5 more years of forced labor isn't appealing either. Troutman knows exactly what will motivate him. If Rambo completes the mission and survives, he'll be temporarily reinstated into the army and granted a full presidential pardon. Rambo thinks it over quietly. His life has lost all direction. His unit is gone. His friends are dead. There's no family waiting for him. Freedom doesn't even mean much anymore. But rescuing abandoned soldiers, men who fought the same war he did, might finally give his life a purpose again. After a long pause, Rambo agrees. Troutman tells him that when they meet again, it will be in Thailand, where a special operations team is preparing the mission. As the colonel turns to leave, Rambo stops him with one last question. Whether this mission matters depends on what happens next. Soon after, Rambo is flown to a U.S. military base in Thailand. When he steps off the helicopter, a talkative technician named Erickson greets him enthusiastically. Erickson says it's an honor to meet such a legendary soldier. Together, they head into the command center, where Rambo meets Colonel Troutman again, along with Marshal Murdoch, the man overseeing the operation. Murdoch studies Rambo carefully. His military record is impressive, filled with medals and commendations, but Murdoch isn't convinced. Can someone who once fought the police really follow orders? Trying to gain Rambo's trust, Murdoch claims he also served in Vietnam. To military intelligence, around 2,500 Americans are still listed as missing in action. Their families want answers, proof of whether their loved ones are alive or dead. Rambo's mission is clear. He must sneak into the prison camp, locate any American POWs, and take photographs as proof. But Murdoch makes one thing absolutely clear. Rambo is not allowed to engage the enemy under any circumstances. No fighting, no rescuing prisoners, just photographs. The political situation is extremely sensitive. The government needs solid proof before taking military action. If Rambo brings back evidence, Troutman's team will launch a rescue mission. But Rambo clearly hates the idea of leaving prisoners behind. Even though he says nothing, the anger burning inside him is obvious. Later, Troutman personally explains the details of the mission. Rambo will parachute into the jungle and travel alone to the target area. This time, he's been given more equipment than ever before: advanced weapons, supplies, and communications gear. Troutman advises him to actually use it. Going solo into enemy territory means Rambo will have to rely on more than just his strength and combat skills. Rambo is also shown the high-tech operations room that will monitor and support him remotely. His first objective is to meet a local contact named Ko Bao, who will guide him through the area. Murdoch confidently assures everyone that the mission will go smoothly. Rambo quietly disagrees. In Vietnam, he says, nothing ever goes smoothly. Murdoch nervously pulls Troutman aside, worried about Rambo's attitude. But Troutman reassures him, there is no better soldier for this mission. During the war, Rambo proved himself to be one of the deadliest and most capable soldiers ever trained, a man capable of matching an entire army on his own. If necessary, he would willingly sacrifice his life to complete the mission. Before deployment, Rambo prepares himself. He carefully sharpens his trusted combat knife, loads his rifle, and packs several explosive arrowheads for his bow. Troutman wishes him luck. Rambo will have 36 hours to complete the mission before reaching the extraction point. But before leaving, Rambo quietly reveals something that he only trusts Colonel Troutman, no one else. Soon, the transport plane takes off into the night sky. Murdoch and Troutman watch from the ground as the aircraft disappears into the darkness. Murdoch mutters privately that Rambo probably won't find anything. In truth, the mission isn't about rescuing prisoners at all. The government simply wants to calm public outrage by pretending they searched for missing soldiers. But Rambo jumps from the plane into the night. Immediately, things go horribly wrong. His parachute becomes tangled in the aircraft, dragging him dangerously close to the spinning engines. Murdoch panics and considers aborting the mission, but Rambo reacts instantly. Using his knife, he cuts the parachute cords, sacrificing his entire equipment pack, which falls into the jungle below. With most of his supplies gone, Rambo finally breaks free and plummets into the darkness. Murdoch insists they cancel the operation, but Rambo refuses. He convinces Murdoch to continue the mission and wait for Rambo at the extraction point. On the ground, Rambo begins moving through the dense jungle. He has almost no equipment left, only his knife, bow, and a handful of arrows. But that's more than enough. Moving silently through the jungle, Rambo avoids snakes, crawls beneath thick branches, and follows his compass toward the meeting point. Eventually, he spots someone wearing a traditional Vietnamese hat.
Not taking any chances, Rambo sneaks up and grabs the person from behind to reach the camp undetected. The two travel down to a hidden river where a group of local pirates operate small boats through the jungle waterways. After a brief and tense negotiation, Bao pays them to transport the pair upriver. The pirates agree. Soon, the small boat begins cutting through the quiet jungle river. As they travel, Rambo asks how the pirates deal with Vietnamese patrol boats. The pirate leader simply grins and pulls out a Russian rocket launcher, showing exactly how they handle unwanted visitors. During the ride, Bao grows curious about the silent soldier beside her. She asks Rambo why he would willingly return to Vietnam after everything he endured during the war. Rambo answers quietly. For him, the war never truly ended. When he returned to America, the battle simply changed forms. But in the jungle, things make sense again. Out here, he feels free. Bao then shares her own story. After her father died, she joined intelligence to take his place, but she's tired of living in a world filled with violence and death. One day, she hopes to move to America and start a peaceful life. She can't understand why Rambo continues choosing a life filled with danger. Rambo simply shrugs. He believes he's expendable. If he disappears, no one would even notice. Bao clutches a necklace around her neck, a small lucky charm. Rambo shows her his version of luck, his combat knife. Meanwhile, back at the American command base, Colonel Troutman pushes Murdoch to move closer to the extraction point in case Rambo succeeds. Murdoch hesitates, clearly not concerned about Rambo's survival. But after some pressure, he reluctantly agrees. That night, Rambo and Bao finally reach the prison camp. From the outside, it appears completely abandoned. The huts are quiet. No guards patrol the perimeter. Something feels wrong. Just as they observe the area, a woman arrives at the camp, clearly someone brought in to entertain the guards. Rambo prepares his bow. Bao reminds him of his orders. His mission is only to take photographs. But Rambo ignores her warning. If prisoners are inside, he isn't leaving them behind. Quietly cutting through the wire fence, Rambo slips into the camp like a shadow. He moves silently between the huts, searching for any signs of life. Suddenly, he hears faint groaning coming from one of the buildings. Inside, the horrifying truth is revealed. Dozens of American prisoners of war are crammed inside a filthy room. They're weak, starving, and covered in dirt. Rats crawl across the floor as the men lie helplessly on the ground. The prisoners are still alive. Outside, Rambo discovers another soldier tied to a wooden post like a scarecrow. The man's name is Banks. Rambo quietly cuts him loose. Together with Bao, they begin escaping through the camp. One guard suddenly walks directly into them. Before he can react, Rambo throws a knife straight into his chest. Another guard shines a flashlight in their direction. Rambo releases an arrow. The guard collapses instantly. A third soldier nearly discovers Bao, but Rambo fires again, eliminating him before he can shout. Now the three fugitives race into the jungle. Before leaving, Rambo promises Banks that he will return for the other prisoners. The following morning, Vietnamese soldiers discover the dead guards and immediately begin tracking the escapees. Banks is extremely weak after years of imprisonment, forcing the group to move slowly. While resting, Banks reveals shocking information. The prisoners have been forced to work non-stop for years, constantly being moved between camps. When Rambo tells him that the Vietnam War officially ended 10 years ago, Banks is stunned. None of the prisoners even knew. Eventually, they reach the river and board the pirate boat again. Only 2 kilometers remain before reaching the extraction point, where Troutman's helicopter should be waiting. But their escape is suddenly threatened. Vietnamese forces intercept a radio signal and dispatch a patrol boat to intercept them. As the patrol boat appears in the distance, the pirates suddenly betray them. They seize Rambo's weapons, planning to hand him over for a reward. But they made a deadly mistake. Rambo quickly pulls hidden daggers from his sleeves and kills the nearest pirate. Grabbing a rifle, he eliminates the rest before they can react. Gunfire erupts as the Vietnamese patrol boat begins attacking. Rambo grabs the Russian rocket launcher and fires. The patrol boat explodes into flames. But the burning vessel continues charging towards them, threatening to ram their boat. One surviving pirate grabs Rambo from behind and locks him in a chokehold. Rambo stabs him with his knife and dives into the river seconds before the boats collide in a fiery crash. He swims to shore where Bao and Banks are waiting. Together, they disappear into the jungle once again. Soon, they finally reach the extraction zone. In the distance, Troutman's helicopter appears overhead. Rambo waves desperately as he drags the exhausted Banks across a rice field. For a moment, it seems like rescue has arrived. But back at the command center, Murdoch receives shocking news. Rambo has located a live prisoner. Panic spreads across Murdoch's face. If proof of surviving POWs reaches the public, it could trigger a massive political crisis. So Murdoch secretly orders the helicopter to abort the rescue mission. Troutman protests furiously, but armed soldiers prevent him from interfering. Helplessly, he watches as the helicopter turns away and flies back towards the base. On the ground, Rambo watches in disbelief as his only rescue disappears into the sky. Surrounded by enemy soldiers, Rambo and Banks are captured. From the jungle, Bao watches helplessly as they're dragged back to the prison camp. Back at the base, Troutman explodes with anger. He confronts Murdoch, accusing him of betrayal. Murdoch calmly admits the truth. The mission was never meant to rescue anyone. It was only designed to convince the public that the government had tried to find missing soldiers. Rambo was supposed to return with nothing, but by rescuing a prisoner, he ruined the entire plan. Now he's paying the price. Meanwhile, Rambo is thrown into a torture pit filled with filthy water and leeches. His arms are chained as guards prepare to break him. Soon, a Soviet helicopter arrives carrying a brutal officer named Colonel Podovsky. He orders Rambo brought in for interrogation. Despite the pain, Rambo refuses to speak. The soldiers heat his knife in hot coals and press it against his face, demanding that he send a radio message warning the Americans to stay away. Rambo refuses again. Electric shocks surge through his body as they try to break him, but Rambo stays silent. Meanwhile, Bao sneaks into the camp, disguised as one of the women brought to entertain the guards. Inside a hut, she silently kills a soldier and steals his weapon. Back in the interrogation room, the enemy threatens to kill Banks if Rambo doesn't cooperate. Finally, Rambo agrees to send the message. They place him in front of the radio. At the American base, Murdoch and Troutman hear Rambo's voice over the speakers. Rambo asks for Murdoch personally. Then, suddenly, everything erupts into chaos. Rambo grabs the microphone stand and attacks the guards. At the same moment, Bao opens fire from below the hut. Rambo shocks one of the torturers with the electrical device and smashes through the wall. Grabbing his knife again, he escapes into the night with Bao. The jungle becomes their battlefield once more. But their escape doesn't last long. While trying to reach the border, they're ambushed by soldiers. Gunfire explodes through the trees. Bao is shot. Rambo kills the attackers in a fury, but it's too late. She dies in his arms. Heartbroken and furious, Rambo buries her beneath the jungle trees, placing her necklace around his own neck. Now, the mission has changed. It wasn't about rescue anymore. Now, it's revenge. Using the jungle as his weapon, Rambo begins hunting the enemy one by one. He hides underwater in thick mud. He sets traps and ambushes patrols. Explosive arrows tear through enemy squads. One by one, the soldiers fall. Finally, Rambo hijacks an enemy helicopter and flies straight back to the prison camp. He rains destruction from above, blasting towers, huts, and vehicles. Landing inside the camp, Rambo frees the remaining prisoners. But a Soviet gunship soon arrives, piloted by Colonel Podovsky himself. A fierce aerial battle erupts. Rambo's helicopter takes heavy damage, but he manages one final shot. A rocket streaks through the air. The enemy helicopter explodes into a fireball. Barely controlling his damaged aircraft, Rambo flies back towards the American base. When he lands, he immediately grabs a machine gun and storms into the command center. He destroys every piece of computer and equipment in the room. Then he marches straight into Murdoch's office. Murdoch begs for mercy, claiming he was only following orders. Rambo pins him against the wall with his knife, but instead of killing him, he gives a warning. There are still American soldiers rotting in foreign prisons, and someone needs to bring them home. Outside, Troutman meets Rambo one final time. He asks what Rambo plans to do now, Rambo quietly replies that the medals they give him mean nothing. Those belong to the soldiers who never made it home. He's not going back to America. Part of him died in Vietnam.